And now that we are recording, I'll call the meeting to order.
Awesome. And that's at 7:32.
All right. I don't remember. Does anyone know what Mary's availability is tonight?
I thought she planned on attending, but she was in Pennsylvania.
I think she was traveling, right?
Yeah, so I thought she would be joining us. I don't remember her saying she couldn't join in person if we decided to meet in person, but
I think she's
She's
here.
there now.
there we go.
All
We have
right.
everybody. Yay.
Okay. So June, what do we have anything new approved by the select board?
I do. Yes, I made the select board meet this week so that we could try to clean up as much
Atta
as possible
girl.
on the budget.
Good job.
And
Of course, my
can I
dad
say
used to
something?
say, "Good jobbies."
I looked at the listing and it said also in the website listing, it said we're also going to review warrant articles tonight. But I didn't know
I
if those were ready.
really
or not,
hoping
so-
this was not gonna be a long meeting.
Okay.
Bruins are on tonight, Janet. We got to get out of this meeting.
I would like
actually
to,
on
if
television.
possible, yeah, if possible, I would love it if we could postpone doing the votes on the warrant just until
Okay.
they're in a more finalized form. And I know Margaret's been working on those, so
Okay.
it might be in a better, easier way to look at it once it's more up to date.
Okay. I will make a note in the minutes. Okay. So postpone warrants to when finish. So shall it be next week or in 2 weeks? What are we looking at that point?
Yeah, I think we're on next week, right?
Yes.
We have to, they should be ready for next week, or is that a?
And do
Hopefully
we
it'll
have
get
to,
a little bit more of a progress on it, so it might be easier to take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, hi, Mary. I guess our timeline is that we have to, tonight was final votes and then, or was it final votes? It was. I don't
We
remember.
have to-
No,
2 more weeks, I think,
Yeah.
is what's on the schedule pretty much to finalize and finish up everything.
oh, okay, good. Okay. I think tonight, so what do we have that they did vote on, June?
All right. Did you have minutes? Because I think that was first. I didn't know if you wanted to do minutes first, or are you all set with that? Want to wait?
The
Yeah, we'll
minutes
wait
were
on-
for you.
We'll wait on minutes.
Okay.
Great. Hang on 1 second, and I will share my screen. Yeah, right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So one of the items was for the assessor's part-time salary and the part-time wages. Oh, sorry about that. Wait a minute.
Rewind.
Woo. Woo. All right. So pretty much what was requested here was increasing her salary line item from 30 hours to 33 hours. And the wages is a little bit less than the 2% due to the fact that we are going to be having a new person come in under Rose's position. So hopefully it'll be a little bit less. Would you like to do them individually, or do you want me to go through them all?
I think we could do them individually. If does anyone have a motion on this? Or is there anything else to talk about at this point, June? Anything else to say about it?
Oh, unless you have any questions.
So, and I'm sorry, you said Rose's position and not Molly?
I'm
who's
sorry.
Rose?
Yeah, no, as a Molly's position is the assessor's part-time salary is Molly.
Right,
Rose Pierce actually had retired earlier this year. So
Okay.
they are in the process of trying to hire somebody new to come in.
and that's wages,
And that would be under the wages. There's two people actually listed there.
because Molly's the assessors, and she's not
Director.
full-time,
yes.
but yeah.
Yep.
But she is salary.
Yep,
Okay.
so she's gonna be going from being a 30-hour week to 33 hours.
Right. And how many hours does she really work? 45, 50? Or what?
I would say it's probably 35 to 40 hours, depending on the season.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all of our dedicated town employees work more than their hours, don't they, Jim?
Yeah, we kind of give our all here and there.
Yeah. Except when they're off gallivanting to Amherst, but you know.
Exactly, partying.
Woot, woot, woot.
June, is
Their
there any way we can
calculators.
see if the selectmen, how the selectmen, what is the column?
This
That's the
here is
select-
the select board under,
Approved? Oh, I
I
see
think-
it. Okay, sorry, it's so small. Yep.
you know,
got
I'm
it.
sorry.
So, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we vote to approve line items number 17 and 18, assessors, salary and part-time wages.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Does anyone have any comments on this? Hearing none, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Dan and I.
Lee, aye.
Scott, I.
Alrighty.
The fire department salary is being pretty much level funded. On that one, the only thing is I believe we added on a holiday or two for pay for him, 2 paid holidays. And the wages, he had originally requested an additional person. Margaret had spoken with the chief and he is okay with waiting another year. We're also in the process of doing an ALS study. So I think the plan is that wait and see what ALS study comes back and says before we start doing any changes to the shifts. That way there also, there is a slim chance that if we were to make any adjustments to the shift changes, that we may have to open up negotiations. So we really don't want to do that at this time. Their contract it ends in 2023. So I would say that next year would probably be a better year to actually discuss this after the ALS study is through. There is a little bit of an increase in the full-time wages, and this is to do any additional coverage that's needed where he's finding there are certain times of the day that he has a little bit harder of a time to get crews in. So we did put in a little bit extra if he has to pay for overtime for people to cover that are already a full-time person if he can't get anybody else in. So that's why there's a little bit of a larger increase there. The part-time wages were level funded and the increase in his expenses were based on $2,000 for repairs and maintenance to vehicles. And he did increase the gas increase of $3,300, which I'm hoping that's going to be enough. But, so that's what that is.
So the
That was select
full-time,
approved.
Yeah.
Select board approved, right? Yep.
Yep, all of the numbers that you see there are ones that were approved by the select board.
so the full-time wages, June, that's not any that's not pay increases or steps, that's literally just,
That's, well, they
Overtime.
do get, they are getting some increases based on the union contract. But currently we are not adding another person to this. It's just the two well,
Right.
actually they have 3 full-timers. And he did just lose, one of those full-timers, so, who resigned recently. So we will be starting off a new person at the starting, step 1 on their union contract when a person comes in, I believe. So, hopefully he will be all set as far as having overtime coverage is needed for the missing shifts that he can't get anybody in on.
and the expenses is, I mean, it's moderate, but it's still,
No, the
More than-
expenses, there was an additional, the reason for the increase of the 5,000, 300 is actually just for the increase to repairs and maintenance for vehicles, and $3,300 for diesel and gasoline.
yeah, I was gonna say, that's probably not even gonna be enough.
I was thinking that too, but at least we've got a little bit extra there.
Yep. Yeah, next year might be reserve fund transfers for the departments for both police and fire and highway, all
Yes.
3 for
Yep.
gas. at the end of the year.
Unfortunately, it could be,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, we have a and I'm sorry, did we have a motion on this?
No, we need a motion.
I'll step up. I move that we vote to approve line items 53 through 56, the fire department items.
I'll second.
Any further discussion or any discussion, I should say, any discussion on this one? I mean, I know that I'm appreciative that they're holding off and adding position. So I'm happy to see that. Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Julie, I.
Scott, aye.
All right, thank you. And we have recreation is next. Originally recreation requested 16,483. We had originally held off on appropriating anything or actually approving any of this earlier in the process, as recreation did come before you, and there was discussion about moving some of the expenses over to either highway or public buildings. At this time, I think over the next few months, the select board is going to be working with Margaret and the recreation to see about where they really want to go with recreation. So whether the maintenance is here or in another department, it's still going to be needed somewhere. And in the past, it has been underneath recreation. So until that process actually changes, we're just going to leave this here. Recreation was asked to prepare a new budget requesting additional funding for any of the programs. We have not yet, as of today, received anything in writing for the budgets. So Margaret and I had talked about it a little bit, and currently there is money in the revolving fund. We do not have right now any type of guidance as far as what their plan is to do with that money also. There is talk about increasing some fees to help offset some of the costs associated with the True Green bill, which at this time, we do not have a contract copy of it yet. So until that time, we really don't have any actual numbers. So at this time, Margaret felt comfortable with increasing this to the $14,410. This will be a difference of $2,000 over what was actually budgeted in this current year, and to help to assist them with that. Currently, I believe there is $733 that was also in the budget that they listed for the playground repairs. So there is some money there. I know that Julie had actually ordered some bark mulch to put around the playground to take care of it this year. So at this point in time, this was the number that was brought up and was approved by the select board on Monday night.
And so what is the mechanism for, I'm sorry, what is the mechanism for spending their revolving fund?
At the town meeting, you'll see that there was a couple of items listed that we vote on separately in a special article for the revolving fund appropriations. One of it, I believe, is the library and the other one is recreation. And then I think we also have the 1870 town hall. So technically what we need to do is at the beginning of the year, we actually appropriate what can be used in that fund. And then they spend the money as it comes in. So it doesn't actually like is not included here as an offset.
Right, so who decides that number?
Currently, I believe that it's the same every year, and I want to say it's like 20,000.
Yeah, I'm sorry, so, right, so it's.
So
but
they
that-
do have
that's the existing
additional
numbers.
funding. Yeah. Currently, right now in the account is just a little bit under 21,000. So it's at approximately 20,000 right now. I know that they did just recently submit some bills. So I have not yet posted those because we're still waiting for signatures for those. So.
Yeah, I'm still confused then as to what, I understand that well, actually, I don't understand it. So they have 20 grand in this account already. So
Yes.
what is it that we're approving at town meeting every year? Adding to it?
No, what it is we have to authorize how much they can spend out of the account at the beginning of the year. So if at the
Okay.
beginning of the year, we say that they can spend up to $20,000 out of that account, then they actually have additional funds available besides what we're voting here for tax dollars under the recreation line item.
Okay,
So a lot
and
of,
so just,
a lot of
and
times
so
what
then,
Margaret was hoping, they were talking about increasing their fees. And the thought process is that if they're going to be increasing their fees, they'll be able to hopefully offset some of the needs for the fields down at South Common, because if we weren't actually using them for other, not only Berlin people, but also outsiders that come in and rent the fields. Technically, we could just do a regular maintenance to it, but there are special needs that are needed to make the grounds to be more appealing to outside people and the different leagues. So the thought process is that some of the fees that are collected help offset some of those additional costs, such as True Green, which is one of their biggest expenses, which she's put in here for $12,000 for the year. Which, based on what she has here, that's what the big increase is because last year they only budgeted $7,000 for that. Usually they do take some of it, if not half of it, approximately out of the revolving fund in the past.
so they have taken this, so they have taken some out of there in the past.
Just to confirm that the maximum is 20,000. It was Article 11 last year. That was voted on.
And so once we as the town approve them the ability to spend that, what is their mechanism for spending it? They have to go to select board, or do they just have it now? Just they can
They
basically
just spend the money.
They can just spend it. Okay.
Yep.
And there's only certain things that they're allowed to spend that on.
Technically, yes, it has to be whatever the fees are offset or we're receiving for is what it should be used for.
Okay.
So like there are also in that amount of money are fleet fees that were being collected when they were playing basketball inside the school. So they also use some of that funding to help offset the costs of refinishing the floors at the school.
Okay, I know that we were, well, at least I was of a mind that I wanted them to expand their mission or try to fulfill their mission with some revolving fund money. And how do we get them to do that?
I don't know. I've put in requests a couple of times. I know that Peg has reached out to Julie also. Julie was at the selectmen's meeting the week before last, and I told her that we needed to have it ASAP. And we're still waiting.
And so where has that 20,000 come from? That's just.
That would be any fees that's been collected.
That's any fees that's been collected, okay.
So they do
So-
receive some money from the different baseballs leagues and, like I said, basketball people.
So this is clearly accumulated over years and years. Right.
Yes. Well, yes.
The whole point of the fund is it allows them to spend money that they receive that year. So as they get funds in, they go into here and then they can expend it.
To help offset the costs associated with it.
Right.
I understand what you're getting at, I think, Stan, as far as them having more money possibly for programs, but at this time, they have not come up with a plan for the programs.
Right, and so
And the other thing is too, is technically they
guess-
had asked for
I
the
guess where I'm-
16,000. Should be the $2,000 left over from this year in next year's revolving, so they could use that towards any expenses.
yeah, what I'm struggling with is the saying that they are spending all of their money on maintenance type things that is not their mission. And they're not, and they have this pool of money that they could be spending on a mission. And I have a hard time having sympathy for that when there's the ability every single year to do something and they're just not. So, I mean, and that's separate from the budget. I mean, well, it's all wrapped up in the budget, but
I don't think the people, it's a great committee now. They have not had a full committee, a good working committee up until recently.
Yeah.
And honestly, Stan, until I brought it to their attention that their mission wasn't the
porta potties.
porta potties and the trash and the
Yeah.
greenkeeping, I don't think they knew what to do. I know they're
Okay.
really looking at the tennis courts. If anybody's noticed, the fences are all down. So they're moving somewhere in that right direction. I did have a long conversation with Julie Lee about programming, but I think they've got to get their head wrapped around what it is exactly they want to do and try to come up with a plan. I know there was some discussion about other programming, and I think they do know that money is there, but I think they're going to take baby steps and try to get things moving in the right direction now that they are a full committee and realize that other people are behind them with their true mission. So I think we have to give them a little bit of time, because I know there was some discussion about something to do with I'm not going to say it, cornhole and pickleball and all these types of things. But I also think they were kind of waiting to see where we were at with COVID. I mean, certainly outside activities can happen, but it's still pretty cool out for that. And getting, baseball and all that up and running, the spring sports, and then try to move forward on programming. I think they want to do it. I think they need to get organized as a full committee.
They also made the
Okay.
comment, Julie made the comment too when she came in, was that they, at least at some time ago, they had thought they were going to use the revolving account for the wellness trail. She had mentioned
Right.
that they were thinking about
Right.
20,000 from that. And obviously, I mean, a lot of things have changed. I mean, first of all, that wellness trail is, I don't know where that's even in the future, but now that they have the community preservation funds, it's something that something you'd be looking at from there sometime in the future when the funds are available. I was just going through the book from, you can look at the recreation fund through, this is like half the COVID year, what was showing here from July 1st of 19 to June 30th of 30. You can see that they took in receipts of $4,076 and expenses of $1,154. So they were, at least up to that point, expending something just over $1,100. And again, that was probably limited on their fees coming in, because they would have probably just had the end of the last half of 19. I'm sure there was nothing going on early 20 when all soccer and baseball and that stuff was shut down for when the pandemic started. So you can get kind of a general idea of the money has come in and what's gone out.
So June, if we were to level fund them instead of giving them a $2,000 increase, and I know that's the select board has voted yes on that, but I assume that we can, well, first of all, can we change that number?
You can, you are the finance committee.
Yes,
Okay.
we can change it.
Okay, so and then my second question, go ahead.
Well, I also just want to remind you that in 2017-ish, in the town report, I believe that that is the year that they took on the responsibility of the playground, that we have actually had to close down right now to make it come up to grade for safety reasons. So they are going to be spending money. They haven't put any money in it on a regular basis over the years for that. But again, like Janet pointed out, is that it was down to just one person on this committee for quite some time. So there wasn't really a lot that could have been done at that time. The other thing is that I know that Margaret and the select board were actually discussing this, is that I think a lot of things need to be relooked at and restructured as far as the actual mission of the recreation, now that they're aware of, the different items. But we're also going to have to sit down with the recreation to get them to understand what the revolving fund is all about. Because when Margaret and I pulled some of the expenses, it almost looked like they had reversed where they were taking the money from. So the stuff that should have been coming out of revolving actually came out of town funds. So
Right. So
that's something.
So
that
part of me
also
wants to force their hand on that and say that if we level fund it at the 12,410 from last year, then they could pay the full True Green bill out of the revolving fund, correct?
They could, but I just want to be a little bit cautious about that, because that's what my original thought process was. But I'm also finding that they just submitted some bills that are 3 or 4 months old, that I believe part of those are going to be coming out of the revolving fund. So they are planning on using some of it right now, but again, I can't honestly tell you how much, because they cannot produce an actual contract with True Green. So I can't say to you that their contract is for 10 grand and they still have to pay 10 grand out of the revolving for True Green, because we don't have an actual contract.
Right, but what was it last year? Or the last valid year?
Well,
I mean,
last year they had asked for $7,000 for True Green.
okay.
And then this year, the prices have gone up on it. I want to say Julie actually had, she's saying that it's going to be approximately $16,000. So in their regular budget, they're only budgeting 12. So they're already going to be $4,000 possibly short just for True Green, that they are going to have to take out of the revolving account if it's not budgeted for.
You're saying True Green's going to go from 7,000 to 16,000?
That's what's written here. And like I said, though, I don't have a contract, so I can't tell you
Can
that.
I-
for
Can I
sure.
speak to this for a minute? I'm only saying this from the few meetings I went to with recreation. I might be misremembering, misspeaking, but True Green also donated a lot of time and chemicals, and I don't mean chemicals and whatever he has to put on materials. And that's one reason why there's not like a real contract, because if he had, you know, something, he'd call and say, oh, I can do it this week because I've got this extra. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I'm not sure he ever really gave them an actual contract, and a lot of it was donated. And I think now that they've got the full committee up, they're actually now looking for. So I can see where that might actually get to that price, Stan, because we've now making him commit to a contract where before he was just giving and donating. And if he was like treating somebody, or, you know, plan to treat so many houses that day, and when the end of the day came, he had extra chemicals on board, he would
Mhm.
donate those to the school. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah, and I don't want to discourage that, and I'm super glad that they do that. So June, what is do we have a rolling, I mean, do we have a last 2, 3, 4 years of expenses for True Green?
I would have to look at for that, Stan. I don't have access to that right now. The other thing too is that I need to point out is that now if True Green is going to be over $10,000, we actually have to get written proposals or estimates
Bids.
for that now, which that
Yeah.
adds a whole nother thing into this.
You know, I'm kind of like on Lassay, it's $2,000 more. It's what Margaret had suggested. They are going to try to do more programming. I mean, if they've got the money there, then they won't have to use the revolving fund. So I'm almost.
I want them to use the revolving fund.
Well, I know, but I honestly think they still want to do something with the South Commons and
And do it through the CPA, as Scott said.
well, the problem with the CPA is that conservation is taking it all.
Well,
So.
okay, but
So that's.
they'll take this year to come up with a plan.
Yeah, you know, let me just put out a couple of things there, and I want to clarify something with June. This particular revolving fund, is that in our revenue sheet so that it's there as a, where appropriate, an offset to whatever expenses we approve, whatever operating budget we approve. So it's in there. What I hear you saying, June, is that we kind of need to do this as a select board anyway, and then figure it out later. What I'm hearing from Stan, which is a very important point, is this recreation committee needs to get its financial act together and needs to do it right away. And finally, this lovely True Green guy, even though he's doing good stuff, he's doing public works. We're spending taxpayer money. It needs to be accounted for. We can't just have one of these nice little handshake things going on. We got to have something. Now, if we sign a contract with the guy and maybe at a lower level, sign a contract. If he wants to do more than a contract, if he wants to donate to the public, he can always donate. But you got to get your paperwork straightened out. And I think what I'm gathering from listening to June is select board has put this in as a place marker to give recreation time, to give maybe people in the town time, and even us to sit with recreation and guide them through how to be financially responsible on this. But Stan, to Janet's point, we're talking about $2,000 here difference between.
I absolutely understand that, but I also want to put a stake in the ground and say, get your act together and make it happen.
I couldn't agree
And
more.
just giving them extra money this year doesn't encourage that. Doesn't do that.
And they need to fight for things. Conservation is doing a steamroller over those CPA monies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm frankly annoyed. I want them to sell a building lot. I don't want to give them the other 120. I mean, I'm off the rails right now, but that's
A little bit.
I'm getting agitated about that whole thing, because why can't CPA throw recreation 30,000? Come on. I mean, this is crazy.
And let's just go one more step with that. I think recreation was a little bit hurt when they found out that they're now wanting to put a wellness trail up at where the 2 lots would have been sold, because that's the level area. And here recreation is trying to do that, and they're sitting on the same committee because they both sit on CPA, and that wasn't shared with recreation. And we also, I'm not,
Sorry, are you talking about the lots that Rhodes is building on?
no, I'm talking about the one that we're purchasing. They
There's a-
talked about putting in some type
Oh,
of garden and wellness and all of that, and recreation was like, well, we were working on that, you know?
Yeah, there's,
So it's neither here nor
Guys?
there, but I want to make a motion that we accept line item 98 and move on.
Guys, can you hold for a second? Mary, sorry, Margaret had raised her hand.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Margaret.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all.
Hey, Margaret,
I
nice
just,
to hear you.
June has explained everything, and I think the committee has done a great job of stating your various positions. I actually agree with everything. Yes, the Recreation Committee does, I think they deserve to be educated on the purpose of the revolving fund. With a revolving fund, a municipal revolving fund, it's money in from fees, money out to support use of those facilities that took in those fees. That's the way it should be. So to say that they were going to build recreation paths and pay for it from the revolving fund wouldn't have been a legitimate use of the revolving fund. So these are the
That's a
things
good point.
that we need to work with the Recreation Committee on to help them understand. All I wanted to do was add to what June had explained before, and I just want to explain what the $2,000 represents. $1,467 to maintain the playground. It actually represents the difference between what they currently budget and what they need to budget for the mulch at the playground. That's $1,467 of this. The other small portion is for a portion of the portable toilets that they put at the South Commons. Understanding that the sports teams that use those fields use portable toilets, there are also, families that visit the South Commons that use the portable toilets. So I was looking at a cost share there. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I will go back in the background and hide. I will go hide. Bye.
Thank you, Margaret.
nice to see you.
Nice to
It
see
was
you.
very
too.
nice to see you, Margaret.
And one other thing I want to point out, and I think Margaret kind of a little bit touched on that, but the revolving fund doesn't show up on it's not an income item on the budget.
No,
So that's
no,
a
it's
completely
totally
separate
separate.
item. That's not offsetting any of these expenses here.
Oh,
So
Oh,
so
sorry, I misunderstood what Mary was asking. I'm sorry.
glad it's clarified. Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, Janet's made a motion. Does anyone care to second?
I'll second it.
Do we need further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Stan, no.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Yeah,
Scott, I.
Okay, moving on.
All right. The next one is the school. Currently, the only thing that was approved was the 66,000, which I do need to ask you to re-vote on. Originally, I had put this in at 68 because in one section of their budget package, it was still reading 68, but their actual budget request further in on the documents is actually 66,000. So we'd like to change that, which is, again, it would be coming down from the 68 that you had originally agreed to. So we're going to be decreasing the amount coming from free cash to 66,000 if so approved. And the Tohoto assessment was also approved by, the capital assessment was approved by the select board. Out of this 10,000, over here, did I put it over here? Yes, I did not. 10,538 of that is actually capital expenditure. The remaining 500 and some odd change is actually the repayment on the loan. So 10,000 of this will be coming out of free cash to cover the capital expense. The amounts that were for the school and Tohoto, the select board kind of was leaning towards the same way that Stan was talking about at the last meeting. As far as they have requested them to relook at the budget to see if they can make some cuts in other areas. And again, same as what you were talking about the last time, Stan, was as far as being able to sustain these types of increases for the coming years.
Right.
So that is pretty much where it stood right now. The select board did not approve those of the two assessments for Berlin Memorial and Tohoto.
Okay, so what do we do with that at this point then, June?
Well, at this point, it's up to you, however you feel. But I did tell the select board that I would relay their feelings. And like I said, I know Scott had come up with, and he would like to see them round them down a little bit by about 84,000 and some change. But we'll see. I know that the school did say that they would talk, that Bob Conway would speak with Jeff about it and see where, if they could cut anything, where it would come from. So I would at least request that you approve or disagree with the actual capital assessments. And I don't know if you want to just hold off or if you are interested in coming up with your own recommendations.
Do we need to rescind our other vote first, or do we just, does a new vote supersede our
No, you
last
could,
vote?
no, you can just vote to on the
Or does
dollar
the
amount
motion,
change.
I was gonna say, does the motion say that we're amending it? Is that what we would
Yeah.
say in our motion?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with that?
Yeah, I move to amend our prior vote on, what are we at, line item 109, the
Oh, I think you're at 110.
110. Line item 110, the Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment. Amend our prior vote to reduce the amount from 68,000 to 66,000.
Have a second on
Second
that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further any further discussion on this? Hearing none, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
And
Julie, I.
Scott, aye.
So I'm sorry, so that was just for 110. So now June is also asking for us to do the Tohoto assessment, right?
If you're comfortable with it, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's all, there's really not much discussion there. We gotta make the pay, we gotta make the loan payment.
you mean the capital assessment, not the
Correct.
Tohoto capital,
Right,
112,
the
not
correct
Tohoto
112.
assessment, right, okay.
right. Sorry, yep.
I move that we vote to approve line 112, the Tohoto Capital Assessment.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Dan and I,
Julie, I.
Scott, aye.
All right, well, I guess I will just start off by saying that, yes, I want the schools to go back and look at their numbers. And regardless of what they do, what I would propose we do is level fund them with the, with their level funding number without the added things that they were budgeting. So it's still more than the 2.5%, but it's not the full 4-point-something%. So, all right, I think those were the percentages. That would be my recommendation on the schools at this point. Now, I don't even know if we should say that at this point, because let them go back and sharpen their pencil and see what they can do, and it might even be better than that. So I don't want to throw down a number first and have them go, okay, that sounds good, we can do that. I'd almost rather just have them come back.
Do we have any sense of where Boylston was with this? I spent the time looking at their meeting minutes, and of course, everything kind of lags and that stuff. And I think the school committee doesn't meet again until the next date is like beginning of April. So there's basically no guidance here. I got no feeling of, especially on the Tohoto piece, right? Because, if whatever amount, if we push down, they're going to automatically get a certain percentage or equivalent push down on their assessment. So do we know anything? Have we had discussions with their administrator, the town administrator, or what do we know?
Yeah, I've only had one discussion with their finance committee chairman early on, and he has not reached out, and I have not reached out to him. So
Margaret has her hand up. She
Sorry.
actually talked to April, so.
Hi, everyone. Yes, about 2 weeks ago, I talked to April in Boylston, because I wanted to get a sense of where Boylston was at, with the school's budget request. And while she couldn't speak for the finance committee, she did say that according to the chair of her finance committee, their finance committee feels that the request is justified this year. And you should also note that, Boylston's overall increase, I believe, is slightly lower than Berlin's. This is kind of representative of Berlin's enrollment growth. And Berlin taking more of a portion or more of a share of the overall assessment. So it's not looking like, I didn't get the sense anyway, that Boylston is going to put up much of a fight. So that's where I think they stand at this point.
and meaning that they're okay with the numbers, the current
think
numbers
that-
as proposed by the school.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
she gets the sense that the finance committee there feels that their requests are justified this year. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The other question I have is, we know that one of the big issues here is the special education funding and transportation. And I know one of the things that we have a large amount that keeps carrying over here, our free cash, which I know, I'm assuming we're going to have an article on the thing that, where we can also transfer it to offset the tax bill. Is that true? I mean, I know we always have a warrant article for that. Is that?
Right now,
Is
I
that-
don't think there's one on there.
Okay, so obviously if it's not on there, it's not going to be there this year. The warrant's closed, right?
The warrant is closed. The board still has control of the warrant and could add something. And I have to say, Scott, since I've been in Berlin, I have not actually seen that warrant article. So it's something we'll have to look into.
Because I think our free cash number is over 2 million, right? It's just over 2 million. When was the last time? I was trying to find where I had written down, and fortunately
Yeah,
I missed
that
the place
sounds
where
right.
that is.
God, we're above the thumbnail recommendation that the state puts out, I think. The last time I looked at it, and I don't ask me numbers, but I think you're correct. We have more free cash than is normal. Let's put it that way.
Right. And of course, in absence of knowing what the rest of the capital plan and everything is totaling to, I was thinking it's like one of the things would be to, looking at what, specifically, at least from offsetting the property tax bills with the big increase and knowing the big part is coming from the special education, that we look to transfer from free cash to offset that number that's basically representative of what that increase was from special education and transportation.
Just-
And that would apply to
just-
both the BMS and Tohoto for our share.
Just make sure that but when you're gonna do that, if that's your thought process, you're actually using free cash to balance the budget, which means technically speaking, you've approved that and you would have to cover it every year out of free cash, not to affect the taxes.
That is correct. But at the same time, we understand this to be a few things. One is it varies a lot, right? And they also have the delayed funding for when the state pays them. Looks like we have the base amount that we have to pick up, and then we pick up, I think it could be from 30 to 40%, but they've indicated it's typically we pick up 30 and then the state pays us the other 70%. So there is always that lag, and hopefully we're not continuously going on indefinitely of adding this number, big type of increase, and that next year when hopefully the funding from the schools comes in for that basically we can hold them to the thing of, okay, next year hopefully they'll have more money coming from the state for paying for last year's or this present fiscal year's or next coming fiscal year's sped costs, that they're not looking at as now extra money just to add additional programming, that we hold them to, okay, they have that money to offset some of these other costs, and at the same time hopefully that we don't have to we can basically gradually bring this into the tax rolls as opposed to being one big jump, which is what we are looking at for this year. I mean, that's one thought I had on this.
Scott, I like the connection you're making there. But it would be crucial to make sure that message is sent. It would also be important to make sure that if the town is to fund any of the operating budget from any recurring costs in the operating budget from free cash, that we set an amount of money that represents, I think we get reimbursed 75% after $65,000 is spent. So I think what we'd want to do is we'd want to ask Bob Conry what the anticipated special ed costs are going to be in the current year, and then calculate what we expect the district to get back in the special ed reimbursements next year, so we don't have to backfill with free cash again next year. And then make sure that the schools then expect that they're going to have to apply their sped reimbursement to those costs next year, rather than us using free cash again. So I like that thought. If we can assure that we don't have to use free cash again next year.
Right. Well, I think it's one of those things you can't be assured that you don't have to, but maybe it's one of those things if you have a much lower amount. But yeah, that's basically what I'm thinking, is that, I mean, I expect really the schools or Bob to come back with that. Okay, this is the cost and this is what his estimate of what we would get reimbursed next year. Because so who would ask that, Bob? Is that something we should do, or is that something you handle, Margaret? Or
I think June and I can reach out to Bob. June, you willing to reach out with me to Bob to put together that?
I can, but I personally wouldn't
I know.
recommend it. It goes against all what we propose for free cash, but
creating a structural deficit. So we'll at least ask the question and see what he comes, or I'm willing to ask the question and see what he comes back with before committing anything.
well, I would like to see if they're willing to cut anything currently before we make this
yes,
suggestion.
that is, I would rather see the cuts
Good point.
come in there
Good point.
first.
'Cause
Yes,
I have to say it would definitely be something that they would have to cut, because I think right now, the only thing that they left in the wants for this coming year is actually elementary school literacy ELA coach was the only thing that they left in the budget for Berlin Memorial that was above level services, so. And I think that only came to 59,000 is the way that they've got it in their budget here as far as the cost goes, because they had an increase of 163,000 for the out of district tuition and transportation, and 71 for teachers union contracts. And they did decrease a 0.5 FTE for the school for a math coach for 20 grand, so. That was pretty much that would, and I think that would just bring it down like a 0.5%, I think is what they had said.
I understand and can appreciate what everybody's saying, and I'm not disagreeing, but in the back of my head, I'm also remembering them saying that next year, with all of the additional English as second language students that they have, they're gonna have to hire another teacher. So I'm just like, we're gonna cut this year and then have to re-add next year. It's just.
Well, and I think when they did their budget, they expected this type of special ed increases over the next few years is what I thought they said, but I mean, so if they actually come in even higher next year because of the sped, I mean, I'd like to think that our free cash will be, if we budget properly, it will still be okay, but just keep in mind, I think we turned back close to 600,000 from last year's free cash that became this year's free cash. So it's not a norm for us to see $2 million worth of free cash. We have to remember that thankfully Margaret was here and she did a spending freeze. So we had a lot of money that we had budgeted, but we did not spend, which rolled into this. So this isn't a normal situation, I guess. And I just don't want to see us having any money that we have to pay for out of free cash in every year. That's an earmark, and eventually it's going to catch up with us.
Mhm.
So June, just to better understand what you're saying about free cash, it says it's a structural deficit if you keep coming back on an operating budget item, but a one-time expense out of free cash is the sort of thing that you would want to use it for.
Usually that's what you use free cash for, would be a one-time item. But if you're actually using free cash to offset your actual operating budget, it's not best practice. I mean, towns do it. It's just not a good practice because, like I said, if you don't have free cash, what are you going to do? Are you going to do layoffs? Are you going to, you know what I mean? I mean, we have play in our levy, but we're trying to stabilize taxes, not have big peaks and valleys in it. So.
Well, that's what I kind of look at. I mean, this thing is being a way to, because otherwise there is going to be a big peak this year, right? It is potentially looking at what we have here with these increases, and what we can do to smooth that out, and not to be a case of we're going to try and hit that. The levy only goes with 2.5%. Each year, but making sure that we try and keep that as smooth as possible.
Yeah, but the peak is going to be in school spending, not necessarily not necessarily in town spending.
That's a good point, Stan. And if you put it before the town, it's like, well, do you want to spend on your schools or don't you?
Right. I mean, to June's point, I mean, we're trying to keep the taxes from going up much more than, say, the 2.5% per year. And even if the schools go up 5%, we can still keep the taxes at that as long as the other revenues are things like the hotel tax are paying for these additional costs and new growth and the other offsets. So. And I think, Scott, you ran that calculation and you basically came up with the fact that even with the school's requested number, the number that we were going to be having coming from taxes, I don't think was more than 2.5%, was it?
Oh, yes, it was, it was much higher. It was more
was?
than double, yeah, it was more than double that. But there was a few things that we still need to resolve. I mean, one of them, for example, was, like you just touched on, was the hotel tax, because actually, June, can you click on the income numbers there? And let's see. So where's the hotel tax? It's going way, it's trending way above what we budgeted. Do we see that here? Rooms and, right. So for example, in line 17, you could almost
Right.
look, you could look at that and probably say even a conservative number is saying 100,000 more on that line item, because this is 170,000 through only, well, I think
That's
it was,
through December.
yeah, and I think even you said there was also some funky things about their quarters not exactly being, there was something about how they
Right,
received
so
it.
the last quarter, we may not get by the end of the year, or however you want to look at it. So I would always be off that quarter of
Okay.
spending, just to
So
be
that
safe.
might actually be a full year's worth and not really only a partial.
No, we have at least one more quarter that we could count here, if not two. But
okay.
again, it's only if we stay where we are right now and COVID does not, have a quick little surge again.
Yeah, but that 95 is pretty conservative compared to where we're at.
Yeah, and I know I mean, this was all new to us when COVID hit, so
Sure.
we don't have a track record to take from here. But what we can do, seeing how these numbers, I mean, that's, I think, one of the obvious ones that can be bumped up on the income side to definitely offset those numbers for, but I think do you have, what's the number look like right now? Or is it because we didn't, if you filled in the school just temporarily, what does the summary result looking like? Because this is our only number left to fill in, right?
Right.
If you filled in those right now temporarily, just keep it, give them what they wanted here, just to see what the final numbers look like.
I think select board voted on all but that one, right? Yep.
Yeah, I think those are the only two.
Oh, that's a good
Well,
number. What the heck just happened there?
You're on, yeah.
Yep, wrong one. Just took care of that, didn't I?
Oop, that's a
Nope,
little too
wrong one
low.
again.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Hang on.
be nice. if
That'll
that was
definitely
it.
be good.
Sorry, it's late. I can't see and I didn't want to stick my nose up at you. Sorry.
Okay,
That right?
and
Yep, okay.
and then so the let's see. So the recommended increase on now shows this being 4%, correct?
Yep.
And then increase total of 572,000.
We're still working on this. We haven't gotten all the numbers in yet, but. So this goes, yeah, the numbers are not fully here.
No, but either way, that, I mean, it gives you a general idea. So it's not perfect, but so you're looking at around 4% total right now.
Right. So
And
that
of
number
course,
was 14.9, and right now the total income's 14.7, but that's not complete.
Correct.
correct.
So it's not that far off.
We actually, today, Molly adjusted it and it looks like we're probably going to be closer to 300 here.
Well, there's half of it right there.
And not only that, we only increased the FY23 preliminary projected by the 2.5%. We did not factor in the actual new growth that we received in FY22, which was significantly twice as much as we had projected. So that spreads out the tax base. We just have not plugged that in. We haven't factored that in to the projection for 23 yet.
Oh, so you just need the 2.5% on the 400,000.
Yeah, just did the 2.5% on the property taxes used for the FY22 projected, 2.5% on the 12,680, 693.
So that's what, another 10,000. right?
For new growth?
Well, if you do the
The
2.5% on
Of
Oh, I'm
four.
sorry. Yes,
the
yes, yes, yes.
400,000 be 10%, right? Or 10,000, sorry, being 2.5%.
The new growth is actually a number. It's not 2.5%. The new growth actually represents the addition to the tax levy. So.
Right,
it's-
that's what I'm saying. It was, if
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
did
so
another
there'd be another 10
2.5%
there.
on top.
But technically,
the,
like you were discussing though, is that if you were to increase, where am I?
right
Here,
there.
Mm-hmm.
If you made like 195,
We plugged that 95 in after the first quarter came in, so.
Right.
so now where are we at? Something's not updating.
versus, oop. Hang on,
Please enjoy the music.
what did I, oh, wrong one. Sorry about that. 14,925 versus 14,919. So that's more than what we need for the budget.
Right. All right, well, let's see what the schools come back with, and then we can go from there. Because we can throw numbers in here all day, and
So could it be doable? Yes, without increasing a major spike in the taxes.
right.
Folks, I gotta sign off. It was a pleasure joining you
Okay.
tonight.
Thank you,
Thank
Margaret.
you.
Take care.
Thanks, Margaret.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, if we can put those revenue numbers like that and it comes into, bring it into that 2.5%, then there'd be no need to look at anything
Right.
with free cash.
Right. Okay. What else do we need to do?
Also wanted to let you know that Margaret had to issue the snow and ice deficit spending letter this past week. I will keep you up to date as far as the exact number as we go bi-weekly. I'll send out an email just so you know where we stand on that.
Alrighty.
And I think that was all that I had for you this week. And hopefully next week we will have the an easier to look at draft of the town meeting warrants that you can take a look at to see how you want to vote on those.
And you guys you're gonna reach out to the schools, June, or that?
It's actually, we've already reached out
Right.
to the school.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can hear about something back, hopefully by next week would be nice.
Right. All right, does the group have anything else?
Gonna
Minutes.
vote on her minutes.
I didn't get minutes, did we?
I sent them out at the end of the last meeting.
Oh, is that, I'm sorry, okay, so
She was so fast, you missed her.
yeah, exactly, you're blinding me with your speed.
It's actually because I am so swamped right now that if I didn't do it right after the meeting, it wouldn't have gotten done. Which is also like, if you have anything you want changed, I won't be offended.
Yeah, so that email went out like on the 9th or the 10th. I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
Out on the 9th, yeah.
On the 9th, yep. I got it. Let's see.
I can't
Fortunately,
do
I'm having a
anything because
hard-
I wasn't there.
I have a hard time finding it. I don't know why.
Email of March 9, 9:39 p.m. from Julie.
I can just send it
Yeah.
again.
I was gonna say, I was just in the process of sending it to you again, Scott.
Okay, actually, I was in my wrong folder. I'm sure I'll find it now. I know this isn't right, but the last email showing up as January 19th.
No, that's not right.
I know.
Sort of my most recent dates.
At night when she sent it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 3/9, you said, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I just forwarded it to you again, Scott.
So I don't have any changes in the minutes. They look good.
Yeah, I don't either.
Thank you, Julie.
Do you want to?
Okay, yeah, I found it. All right. Okay, that's good.
All right, so do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Did I?
Yeah,
Scott, I.
All right. Any other business?
Just send me a copy of the approved minutes. That would be great. So that way there I can attach it to the reserve fund transfer.
I will do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you all.
Sure. Thank you.